Thanks for listening to the Zain Battla podcast. We officially have merch, and right now 100% of the profits are going to PCRF, Palestine Children's Relief Fund. We got hoodies, we got t-shirts, and again, 100% of the profits going right to PCRF. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I want to thank you for supporting my work. So just getting right into it, as we were talking about Best Buy, Best Buy gave me all the skills that I felt like I needed in my professional life in terms of speaking. So did you have a similar experience at Best Buy?
I think before Best Buy, I was really scared to talk to people in general, outside. So I really learned how to actually interact with people.
Yeah.
I think I built a lot of my charm through Best Buy, selling things. I was very competitive, so I've always been a very person that debated a lot and to win arguments. Right. But I think in doing it in a way where you're selling something, you're not really fighting people, right? It helped me build my charm and my persuasiveness a lot more. And I feel like Best Buy got me ready for politics, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, because
I didn't know I was gonna get in politics that time, but it really
that's
helped.
true. Who knew Best Buy would take you to where you are now?
Yeah.
I do think that at Best Buy, because I worked in computers, people would come in, they would say, hey, I need a computer that does video editing and has this crazy graphic designing need. I'm doing some heavy gaming. My budget's $200. What can you get me? And I would just straight up look at them. You cannot do what you want to do for $200. So either you got to increase your budget or you have to not have all the bells and whistles on the laptop. So in order to sell them on that idea,
you have to put in the work. You have to get creative. I remember a guy came in one time for I used to go all around the store because I loved learning about new products. So I didn't stay in the camera department where I was mainly I was a lead for the camera department and the gaming department. But a guy came in, he was like, I'm looking for a budget nice speaker for Christmas. And I was like, and he said something, I don't remember if he said a brand or something. He said, under $100, something like that. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I do know Sonos. So I took him to Sonos. And Sonos, that's fancy.
Right.
I showed him, the Sonos experience area sells everybody. You just play the stuff. And we talked for a little bit and he was like, all right. I was like, it's Christmas, man. Come on, go ahead.
Yeah.
And he walked out with the Sonos a set. And that would have been maybe a $50, $60. He was trying to get the JBLs. And then we walked out with a Sonos. So that was exciting. I love that one. That was that's when I realized, man, I love sales.
Yeah. No, I tell people to this day that I think the most valuable experience I had in sales was simply working at Best Buy, or most valuable experience in my speaking, my ability to sell, not just sell a product, but sell myself.
And sell value like that. That guy went home with a better product than he would have gotten. It's something that's going to last him for a really long time. His family was definitely going to enjoy it. It's all because we had, a little conversation about it.
Well, that's where your career in politics comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I have to sell myself. I have to not buy your vote, but essentially,
yeah. That's my least favorite part of politics. I'm very much anti-establishment. Mm-hmm. So I'm always I think even during the campaign, I was so picky on how I did my campaign. And I was very particular that I did not want it to look like a regular campaign. I didn't want to go out there knocking doors, say, I need your vote for this reason. But really, I went out to the community and I just talking to people. What do you need? What do you think is missing? Here's what I think is missing. Tell me if this connects with you or if you have something else. So throughout the campaign, it was very much grassroots, going into the community, talking to people, figuring out what they're passionate about, and really just problem solving within the community. It was very different from a regular campaign. I refused to do a lot of the regular campaign events. I refused to do a lot of the regular fundraising events. I was like, this is going to be a grassroots, campaign. I didn't even have a campaign manager for the longest. I got a consultant at one point for a few months. All of my team was volunteer, marketing volunteer, canvassers volunteers. There was no paid staff other than the consultant.
Wow.
It was fun. It was interesting. It was my first time doing anything like that.
And you made it. You got elected. So that's awesome.
Made it, yep.
The nature that I see always in politics growing up, and now obviously the push kind of has changed to, we need to look at more grassroots efforts, and those are the people that are actually going to enact change. Yep. But it always goes back to who raises the most money. Even if you are grassroots, it's, I need small dollar donors to just beat this one person who just gets millions and millions of dollars
Yeah,
in
the money
funding.
in politics is just, it's bad. It's corrupting.
Have you been able to stay away from that for the most part, or do you feel that you're a little dependent on it?
For the most part. So I remember I made a decision to be anti-corporate PACs in particular. We're still trying to figure out whether I'm going to be anti like all PACs, because there are some special interest groups I relate to, and I don't see the issue with getting their support, like Diabetes Association. Like I'm okay with that, like CARE. But I was like, I'm not taking any corporate PACs at all, and any super PACs either. And I told my consultant this, and he was like, "That's ridiculous." And then they started talking about it. Every party I went to, they're like, "I heard you said you're not taking any PAC money. What's going on? Why are you guys all talking about this?" And they're just kind of all confused, like, "Well, how are you going to raise some money? How are you going to make it happen?" And it's just like they don't really. I think the system is so rooted in money and PAC money. They don't really believe in alternative ways. And when they hear, "Oh, I'm going to run for office, but I'm not taking corporate PAC," they think like you're just doomed for failure. But community fundraising is a thing, and I'm lucky to be in a community that is really good at giving. Especially like the Muslim community gives more than every demographic in the world, actually. And so just going out to my community and asking them for money, and even the young people are giving small dollar donations, and being very smart in how I use my money. Like I said, I had mostly volunteers. I didn't really need to use that much, and I ended up still raising almost 80,000. So still made it happen. I know now it's gonna have to kick it up a notch. I'm looking for the doctors now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, the little house parties and stuff like that, but still keeping it as away from traditional fundraising as possible.
Usually in the public, all eyes are on the federal level, how the federal level raises money, how the federal level campaigns, because they need to raise, even if they're grassroots, they need to raise at least $1 million plus. Yeah. Is it similar on the state level, at least in Ohio, or maybe you can speak on other states' makeup as well? Yeah,
I don't know about other states, but I know in Ohio it's pretty chill. Also, it really depends on your race. I think across the board in every state, it depends on how difficult your race is, how tough your race is. I think for like a 2-person primary, it's not that bad. Wow, it really does depend. But in Ohio, I think the average is like $60K maybe. There's some really high raisers, especially people in leadership do more. But generally, people don't raise more than like, I think when I was looking at numbers, it was like 50, 60, 70K.
Yeah, and you said 80 is what you raised.
I got to 79,000 something. Yeah, without PAC money.
Without even putting in effort or forefront that, hey, I need to raise X amount of money.
Yeah, I wasn't even doing call time.
Wow.
That's right. I still have phone anxiety. I got over like in-person anxiety. I still have phone anxiety. Once I figure out call time, we're gonna ramp that up.
Yeah,
one day, inshallah.
There is some campaigns that I've been on, and I've done phone banking, and sometimes it gives you that phone anxiety you speak of, and I think
add money to that.
Add money, but I think a bigger thing now that I'm realizing is I get so many freaking scam calls every single day that even if someone is calling me or I'm calling someone on behalf of a campaign, I just feel that this person does not want to talk to me, regardless of if they're interested in a campaign or not. Yeah, it's getting too much. I think this year I started like texting. So I'll put like, I made like a spiel, and then I have my graphic with the link in there, and then send it out to all people. And that actually did a lot. Did some numbers. Yeah. So I think texting is the new fundraising, phone making. What got you to the point of saying, hey, I want to run for office? Or if you maybe it traces all the way back to your childhood, maybe this is something that you've always envisioned, or did you come up with it very recently that, hey, you know what, I'm going to run for office? If you take me through kind of what got you to this point. It's amazing. A long story. It's very interesting. So I was born in Kenya. So my family's originally from Somalia. There was a civil war. So my parents fled to Kenya. So I was born in a refugee camp in Kenya. And then we moved to America. I think I was like 2 years old. We moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. And then one of my sisters was born. One of my sisters was born in Utah. And then we lived there for like a year or two and moved to Ohio. And grew up in Ohio. So I'm the oldest of, 9. Oldest of 9, 8 girls. Wow. So, and I also grew up always being bossy and in charge, making things happen. I'm the fixer-upper of things, of the community as well. And really grew up with 2 parents who are like that as well. Like they're very much community-oriented. They're very
involved in, anything you could think of that was happening in the community. They were probably involved. And my dad helped start 2 masjids, 2 mosques in the area. Wow. And like consecutively, and his mosque was so different. Like when I go to a different masjid, I'm like, this is not like the other one, where he believed that it was not just a place of worship, it was a place of community, where people can get resources and help. Like almost every day there was someone coming in for like an issue. Like they had marital problems, they, domestic violence, they needed help with their rent, drug abuse. Like it didn't matter. Like I saw so many people come into the masjid and he helped them with, a variety of issues. Same thing with my mom. She was very involved in the community in that sense as well. So I think growing up in a family that was so involved in community got me to be very passionate about community service and community work. And so throughout like high school, I did nonprofit work. I volunteered for different organizations, became youth director for Mass Columbus, did a lot of programs for the youth, and then in college. Like I was at this point never thought about politics, by the way, so no apolitical, right? Like I care about social justice, and I think I was very passionate about world politics. So I'm not really apolitical. World politics really did interest me. So I went to school trying to figure things out. Thought I was gonna go to med school. I did like career center. I killed it. Then I worked for a doctor as an intern. I hated it so much. So I left.
Every child of an immigrant family just relates to, I'm going to be a doctor, and then
it's like,
never pans out.
Like I loved it. I loved like the course I took in career center, but I just, the experience in the hospital was like horrible. Or in the doctor's office was terrible. And then I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And then I switched over to architecture.
Oh, wow.
And then I realized I hated it because I just liked looking at buildings. And you can tell I have ADHD. Truly, I do actually have diagnosed ADHD. So I'm like, I was switching over. And then at some point, I'm like, I'm just going to explore, figure things out. And I just took random courses and I realized diplomacy was an exciting topic for me.
Right.
So, and I was very passionate about world politics and world peace, really. And, problem solving on a larger scale. I was like, this is for me. So I studied international relations diplomacy, particularly strategies of war and peace. And I did that in college, and I graduated with that degree. And I think I was looking for jobs in like the State Department in different places. And at the same time, I was still doing my volunteer work. I did find an internship right out of college for Ignite. And this just happened out of nowhere. And Ignite was like a friend recommended it. But Ignite is the largest organization for young women in politics.
Okay.
And so like, okay, this is just a good experience out of college just to get some, my foot in the door, right? So I did that and I was like, this is really important. And the whole message of Ignite was, we need more young women in politics. Like, you're not too young, you're not too inexperienced. We need this representation. And I think working in that as a Ignite fellow for Ohio, that really got me exposed to like all the disparities that we had in politics in terms of representation, in terms of Black women in politics, or women in politics, in terms of young women in politics, right? And just researching all the issues that I had to research for my fellowship really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And at the same time, I think around that time, 2020 was happening, right? So I think after my Ignite fellowship, I think 1 year in, 2019, 2020. 2020 was happening. Everything was gone to hell, chaos. Right? It was chaos. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, we really do a lot more at home, right? So I started focusing more on local politics because we had, political unrest. Our communities are in shambles, right? We're realizing like how bad police brutality really is, and how bad the divide is between like our officials, local officials, and the institutions that are supposed to protect us and the community. So I think my eyes really opened during that time. And I realized, man, we got a lot to do at home. Like world peace, we need peace at home, right?
Yeah.
So I started getting involved in local politics, immediately jumped in. It just started off going to protests. And then I was like, we got to do something more than this. Like, we can't just keep yelling in the streets. Like, we got to figure out something. Love protesting, but like, we need some action behind this, right? So I started connecting with like local judges and local like activists and talking about like, what can we do to like bridge this divide? There is a huge amount of distrust in the community. I think we could start here. So we started doing like town halls, connecting the judges to the community. Realized like they had no idea how to connect with communities that weren't like theirs. Like, they did not know how do we interact with these communities? How do we even get to them? And I think, so this is like, the story has like a bunch of thoughts, like.
No, I'm following along. Don't worry.
Everything just kind of came together, right? It's like a puzzle. And I think through that work, someone literally just came up to me and was like, have you thought about running for office? And I said, I don't know. And that was like the first person. And then someone else like in that same week almost like was like, oh, have you thought about running for office? And I started thinking about it. I'm like, that's actually decent. That's actually not a crazy idea, because we're talking about, representation. We're talking about changing the system from the inside. We're talking about building trust between elected officials, and talking about changing the whole demeanor of the system and the way it treats people who are not fully represented in that system.
Right.
The best way to do that is by actually adding representation and really modeling that behavior yourself. And I'm like, so I really thought about it and said, okay, well, give me the numbers, because I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
I'm like, give me the numbers, give me the information. So I started doing some research myself and then asking around like mentors. And one of them connected me to the house director. And he just called me. We did almost like a screening on the phone. And he was like, yeah, I like you. Run for office. So I prayed about it, asked my parents, thought about it, did some more research, really just weighed all the options. And I said, you know what, okay, I'll run. And really I made myself like some conditions, like if these conditions are in place, I will run for office. And, scoped the district out. So this is a really good district. It was a district that I served in as a youth director, where the mass center is, the mosque my dad helped start, right? So right in the center of that was the mosque. That's the district, new district that was drawn. Wow. There was no representative in that district, so it's an empty district, empty seat. That's fairly easy to win, right? There was like 2 opponents, scoping out the opponents, ended up being, 3 actually, and then ended up being 1. Did the screening, got their unanimous recommendation to endorse, and then did the endorsement interview thing, where it was like, it's not really an interview, it's like the whole Democrat committee comes together. It's like 119 people. Someone nominates you to speak. You speak for like a few minutes, and then your opponent speaks for a few minutes, then they vote. So I ended up getting 98 votes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane. I got 98 votes out of the 119, and I got the endorsement. I'm like, we got it in the bag. But before that, I really did do a lot of research and took a lot of trainings. And one of the best trainings I took was like training for new American leaders, so immigrants running for office. But all this goes to say, like, it wasn't something that I thought about doing or planned for. It just kind of came to me through the process of working in the community, looking for solutions to the problems that I saw, and then ended up thinking maybe I could be that solution, right? People think, oh, we can't think that way, but like, if not you, then who, right? We can't keep waiting for other people to solve our problems. There has never been a Muslim in the State House, right? In the Ohio State House. There's never been a Somali. There's so many Somalis, the second largest Somali population in Ohio, and there hasn't been a Somali in any political office in Ohio. And so this is time for that to change, right? The community has so many issues that no one talks about, no one understands. And the broader New American community also has so many issues that nobody really understands or even tries to understand truly. Right. And why not go in there and solve that problem yourself? And I think the way I really was able to have that confidence to actually go for it is my training in Ignite, right? The whole point was to encourage young women to run for office. You're not too young, you're not too inexperienced. And then just finding those circles like New American Leaders, and there was a couple other things like Lead Ohio, just those organizations that really support you. So yeah, that was it in a nutshell. Pretty much the whole story. There you go, the book.
No, I really appreciate that. And I think that, you had a strong support group. As you said, you had a unanimous vote, almost unanimous in the endorsement, or you at least had the majority. Yeah,
unanimous in the screening committee and then majority for the endorsement.
Got it. Yeah. And you having been involved in the nonprofit space, especially with the youth in the area that you were, that you're currently representing, but at the time you were working with the Muslim youth in that area, reaching out to them and maybe having them involved in volunteering in your campaign.
Yeah, they volunteered hardcore. They went in there. And my siblings. I have so many.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Having 8 siblings worked out.
And cousins. I have so many cousins, too.
Oh, of course. Does Ohio, or maybe Columbus in general, have a large Somali population?
Yeah, second largest Somali population after, like, Minneapolis.
Wow. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people always point their heads towards Minneapolis just because it's known as, oh, you go there, you're basically in Somalia.
Yeah, it's huge. It's Little Mogadishu, yeah. That's the capital of Somalia. It's huge. And so Columbus is like next, but like it's a lot less. Then it's Seattle.
It's probably still
it's huge though still.
The cities that at least I've lived in, they've been predominantly either Desi, Pakistani Indian, or Arab predominantly. So I think it's on my bucket list to go visit Minneapolis, but I hear amazing things about Minneapolis, and also Columbus
Come
too.
to Columbus.
Yeah. No, I definitely need to check it out. I've only been to Toledo, Ohio, and I heard there's not really much there.
There's nothing going on in Toledo. Sorry, Toledo.
But I've heard good things about Columbus. I've heard good things about Cincinnati.
Yeah. Cincinnati is beautiful.
Yeah, definitely want to find time to check those out. But it sounds like, the community in Columbus, the youth, the elders, the Muslims, the non-Muslims, they all pretty much get behind you. And at least in 2022, when your last election happened, alhamdulillah, you're here. You made it into office. You have your little pin.
Little pin.
Yeah. But now, as 2024 is coming into fruition, I know that there's a lot of, world events happening, such as Israel and Palestine. Yeah. There's also here domestically, there's continued issues that people are kind of getting fed up with the Democratic Party and saying that, hey, we thought these issues would be addressed. We thought student loan payments and all this other stuff would be addressed. And of course, I know that a lot of that has to do with federal and you're on the state level, but it's still kind of a association that maybe the politically informed person doesn't make, that oh, the Democrats made me upset, I'm going to vote Republican. Is there a fear there for you?
Oh, yeah, that's been happening, I think, in the community, especially because, when you see, especially federally, right, you see things happen in the executive office and people get angry and whoever party that is who they take it out on. And in Congress, Congress is a mess. Can't sugarcoat it. Right. And I think people really take that into heart and use that to inform them in their local politics. But local politics is a completely different ballgame, right? And of course, there is still issues in the Democratic Party, even locally. And I really think the community needs to think about how can we better engage the party? Because overall, the Democratic Party has the most alignment with our values, right? Immigration justice, social justice in terms of like criminal reform, economic justice, right? The list goes on and on. Even healthcare, you can't find that in the Republican Party. It's all the opposite.
Right.
Right. They really want us gone. Like immigration reform for them is immigration. Kick everybody out. Like it's very. We can't even get into that. It's too much. So we can't shoot ourselves in the foot because we're angry about some issues. We need to be active and advocate for those issues, and we need to put our money where our mouth is. Like we need to go and campaign for the issues that we care about. I think our communities don't really lobby. Yeah. Lobbying is an important tool. Even before I ran for office, I thought lobbying was like dirty business. It sounds dirty, right? Like, oh my God.
It sounds very dirty because then you think about, oh, this person raised millions of dollars.
Yeah, they're bought out, right? Yep. They're bought out. But lobbying at like a local level or like a personal level or individual level or community level is different. Like the same word is used for like, people paying basically legal bribery, right? But this is different. It's like you going to your elected official and listing out the issues that you care about. Like there's Muslim Advocacy Day every year happens, and Muslim Day at the Capitol happens every year in DC. And it's amazing. You bring, we have a couple 100 Muslims come together. There's a training. This is how you do effective lobbying. Here's your list, your schedule to meet with your elected officials. Here's a list of priority bills that we want to talk about and want to advocate for. Like I remember last year it was like the watch list, which is egregiously targets Muslims. Mm-hmm. And like this is what lobbying really is. It's going to your elected official and telling them this is the issues that we care about. And this is what we need done about it. Sometimes, I hate to say it, guys, but sometimes these electeds don't know what's going on. Yeah. There's so much happening. They really listen to what whoever came to them that week or that month has told them. And that's what they know about that issue. So if my community never came to me about an issue, let's say another community never came to me about an issue, I likely would never hear about the issue. I wouldn't know what's going on.
I do agree that a lot of people, they'll either be solely focused on a single issue and just make the decision of who they're going to vote for on that single issue. If it's going to succeed, then if they see that promise in one party, they'll go for it. Yeah. And then the Democrats in general, I feel they tend to overpromise and underdeliver.
For sure.
Across the board. Not saying that that's what you did, but across the board, even if they believe in a policy, obviously there's a rounds and rounds of approvals that you have to go through, whether it's at the state level or at the federal level.
Yeah.
It's always
there's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Exactly.
Honestly. I think all politicians overpromise.
Yeah.
They're like, we wish we're gonna get it done, but no one says the wish part. We're gonna get it done.
Yeah, they say we're gonna, and then they get into office, and
they
then
might
you lose
in 10
faith.
years.
Yeah, I mean they might, but you have to
Yeah.
at this point, and I'm sure you're seeing this with Ohio, is that you have to look at the people, whether they're Democrat, whether they're Republican, whether they're independent, who they are, and are they on the right side of history on XYZ issue, right? So I'm sure in your experience with, I know there's several bills that have been blasting on your social media, vote on XYZ bill, vote yes, or push your representative to vote yes. What are some examples of those bills that have, passed the Ohio state floor, or that have been passed, some that haven't been passed because they didn't get enough votes? Do you have some examples of bills?
I've got a lot of bad ones that have been passed this year. Well, first of all, I think we're considered the least effective GA this year.
Oh,
it's really nice, right? There was a bill that I was really passionate about, SB 83, and that was like a higher ed. They called it Enhancement Act, a higher ed Destruction Act, really. And it would basically limit, pretty much destroy DEI offices, make it so the universities cannot talk about controversial subjects, and the controversial subjects in question are guns, marriage, climate justice. I think they had systemic racism was in there as well. Basic things that you should be talking about, right? Like if something happened, the university would not be able to talk about it. Made it so that they, would have to create a curriculum for intellectual diversity, right? So those things. Made it so that it's called staff can collectively bargain. I think we took that part out. And it was just a whole list of things that was just really bad for universities, and making it so the universities cannot even question a professor on if they had really dangerous ideologies. Like there's no ideological limits, so you can't talk about their ideology. Don't matter.
And let me guess, those ideologies aren't even that dangerous. It's just
it's like you can ask one. If your professor is like a Nazi, you can't find out about that. You can't ask him. It's illegal now. That's because of that bill. Like the bill hasn't fully passed yet, but that's what that bill says. Like you cannot actually dive into those.
I'm sure the Republicans that were pushing for that, they were probably more concerned with the other side.
Yeah, they're saying, well, we're being,
anti-woke.
Anti-woke, like we're being sifted through. Like they're not hiring conservative professors, and they're not doing this. And it was crazy because the bill had over 700, I think, opponent testimonies. It was a record number of opponent testimonies, and it was a range of people. We had conservative professors coming in saying, you're stifling our voices, because now the students, there was like a portion in there as well about students evaluating professors, and they could pretty much grade the professor on certain, like, oh, I said this opinion, the professor didn't make that space open for me. Like I was saying some crazy things, like, but he should let me say it, and the professors would be pretty much stifled, right, in the name of free speech, but not really. And so we had conservative professors coming in. We had libertarian professors come in. We had liberal professors. Everyone pretty much came and testified against it. And then the proponent side was literally the same type of people.
It's always, we care about free speech and people should be able to say what they want to say until they say something that they don't want. And I think as much as the Republicans say, oh, the left is obsessed with being woke, I think they're more obsessed with it, if anything, that they just say, oh, look at these people with their rainbow hair and whatever stereotypes they try to paint.
Like the craziest little things, and then they would twist the argument, because we had in the proponent testimonies, they came in and talked about, students they don't have free speech in colleges, and this bill will fix that. And then they started coming in the second round. They were like, you see what's happening on campuses? All this anti-Semitism, all this, the protesting. This shouldn't be happening. So where's this free speech, right? Yeah, sure. The hate should never happen on campus. But they're talking about students literally just going outside and protesting.
Right.
For them, that was too far. That doesn't count as free speech. They can't go outside and talk. And so it was like, it wasn't adding up. But then they were coming in with the organizations that were literally promoting the things that they're talking about.
Right.
And when you point out those things, obviously they don't exist, right? The hypocrisy does not exist. And so that bill passed through committee. after us fighting it for almost a year, there was a lot of interesting, a lot of bills that people have been pushing and coming in saying don't pass these bills. There was a bill that passed to stop the people from organizing a ballot initiative for reproductive rights, and so what happened is they did a poll and they realized like they would probably get about 6% of the votes. And so the GA brought out a bill that would make it so that the threshold to pass ballot initiatives would go up to 60%. It would be 60%, and then petition gathering would have to be gathered from every county, not half.
Wow.
So
they can just do that?
They're not even sneaky at all, right? Like just blatantly corrupt. They're like, we're changing it, we're moving the goalposts, basically. And they passed it. They passed it, but they passed it only as a ballot initiative itself. And they passed it in August election, which they made illegal the year before. They tried to make it illegal. They had a bill that said August election should be illegal because they waste money and they have low turnout. So what does that say when they put it into August election? They wanted to have a low turnout. Right. People really came out for that bill. They're like, this is so corrupt. Like, I think it really opened the eyes of people. And that August 8th election was insane. Like, people really came out like almost like a presidential election. And they overwhelmingly voted no on that issue. Mm-hmm. And so that they could continue to vote on the November issue, the reproductive rights issue. So we voted no on the 60% threshold. And of course, they sneakily made it the same name. So now it's vote yes on the same issue. Issue one. It's like they never stop being villains.
They have figured out everything move and every response that if someone tries to even prove them wrong or tries to present some sort of logic or facts, as they claim, they're like, oh, facts don't care about your feelings. It's, oh, but when we present logic to you or present facts or evidence, then they try to wiggle their way out of trying to have actual conversation. Because for them, for Republicans at least, they always preach on, oh, we want to limit the government's abilities and we want a smaller government. But then all the bills that they tend to pass are all about government control, controlling education, controlling, people's women's right to choose. If these are choices at the end of the day, and what you preach is free speech, the right of freedom,
liberty, like it's
liberty. If these are your fundamentals,
the math is not mathing.
Something doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's been even more frustrating recently. Over the past 2-3 months. Has there been any kind of legislation passed in Ohio, anti-BDS or resolutions declaring SJP a violent terrorist group or anything like that?
We had anti-BDS one previous GA, and I believe it passed. Yeah, it passed. And we had a resolution in the beginning that, said we unequivocally stand with Israel or unequivocally condemn. And I was one of the only people, I was the only person in my caucus that was like...
I saw that that post that you put on your Instagram. It was Abdullahi X.
Yeah.
And then everybody else was either yes or present.
Not there, yeah.
Yeah.
The president is not there. It was very intense, but, I was very shocked because in my own caucus, like, we got to talk about the bills right before session. And I was like, they asked me, is anyone going to vote no? I'm like, it's going to be me. And we were talking about it beforehand too. And they gave me a moment to talk about it. And I was surprised. I thought I was going to leave like biggest enemy, enemy number one.
Yeah.
But I explained, I was like, this is not about, mourning for lives lost. We all mourn for the innocent lives lost, but this is ignoring the context of Palestinian suffering. And this is also not even the day of, this is a couple of days after, where already thousands of Palestinians have already been killed, or hundreds of Palestinians have already been killed in retaliation, plus the 76 years of occupation and death that's been happening, right? That we're just going to ignore all that. And I said, it just feels like a betrayal to all the Palestinians who have died in this conflict, to just say, we don't care. We stand with Israel no matter what. And it just felt so, honestly, just felt so heartbreaking to me that they would even consider that, in my opinion. It's like, you guys believe in justice. And I think my caucus really did respond pretty well to it. They didn't really understand the situation that much, a lot of them. And the ones that did, like, I have one of my colleagues, like, he made sure that he talked about Palestinians in his speech, right? And they told me they would limit the speeches, but they wouldn't let me even talk about it. I was like, let me have the space to talk about it, because being the only no is going to put a target on my back, right? Yeah. Let me at least explain it before people start making up their own ideas. And the speaker said no. He had some excuses. He said he was worried about the other side saying crazy things. So he limited it to 2 and 2. But my colleague was able to, mention the Palestinian suffering. He tried to get into the resolution as well. Shout out to him, but he couldn't get in. And so I wasn't able to like actually talk about my reasoning. I was like, oh, the Republicans were looking at me like I literally did a crime, and they were talking about me. It was crazy. I remember I was walking out of session. It was like really awkward, and one of them was like, you know what? I just want to say that he said what he says. I admire your conviction. He's like, we need people with more principle like you. And I just want to say whatever disgusting things my colleagues are saying is unacceptable. I said, what are they saying?
Do I even want to know what they're saying?
Like the fact that he said that, I was like, yeah, I could have went without knowing that, but thank you. I appreciate it. But it was hard, like standing alone, right?
Yeah.
And even though my colleagues behind the scenes were supporting me, it was just put me in a difficult position to be the only one that says, nah.
Was that disappointing that some of your colleagues?
Very disappointing. Oh my God, it was very heartbreaking. Yeah.
They may tell you up front, like, "Hey, we hear you, we support you,"
but you on your own, baby.
Yeah, exactly. It seems that
it's tough.
Whether on the state or the federal level, there's always a narrative. Either the media has that narrative, or in general, maybe this is the reality that the Republicans and the Democrats are really that divided. But it seems that when it comes to Israel, especially the politicians, this is the issue that unites them.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. I've been trying to wrap my mind around it as well, because I'm new to politics, right? I'm just like, what is going on here? And I think it's a really strong lobbying system. I gotta say it. They have a very, very good lobbying system, and it's been entrenched in like American politics for so long. Like we've been their longest supporter, and so we really shut down any like opposition quickly. So no one has been able to have the opportunity to truly. Not many have have had the opportunity to truly talk about it and like survive.
Yeah.
So I think there's a mixture of like fear. I seen what happened to that one guy, and there's a mixture of like I'm not even interested enough to educate myself on this. Like it's far, far, far away. Like most people think, right, in most issues. And then there is that layer of lobbying where there's really strong lobbying organizations that are in these circles, and they're actually paying good money to lobby politicians and tell them this is what the issue is, and this is our side, and this is the only side.
And then if you say that, oh, there's a lot of money coming from AIPAC or a pro-Israeli affiliate, they'll say, oh, that's anti-Semitic.
But it's facts. Like the money's there. Like I can see it with my eyes, right? It's right there. I can't. There's no way I completely reject that sentiment completely, because it's facts. Like I'm stating facts. We're not saying that there's manipulation happening. This is what lobbying is. You give money, you convince them to be on your side. That's what lobbying is. The game is the game. But for me to point it out is not anti-Semitic. It's the facts.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think it's, if you're gonna say one thing's anti-Semitic, but then not bring up the amount of people who are pro-Israel that have said the nastiest things about either Palestinians or Muslims, or calling them barbaric, saying things that I still remember to this day when I logged on LinkedIn of all places where you're supposed to be super professional. Within few days after October 7th, the amount of hatred spewing from just regular Joe Schmoes that I happen to be connected with on LinkedIn, talking about, Gaza deserves to be flattened, and we need to kill every woman and child too because they're complicit. It's crazy how insane they get away with saying these types of things. And something as simple as saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that's anti-Semitic. Saying that the Israel lobby has a lot of money and they fund opposing candidates or candidates that oppose AIPAC. And even if it's proven, written in paper, you can go on the FEC website, see that these donations are happening. That's anti-Semitic. How does that work? It just frustrates me.
It's very frustrating. And it's also frustrating to see it come from the same people that you have seen with your own eyes being extremely anti-Semitic and hateful to all groups. Suddenly switch over and decide to say, no, that's you, when I was telling you were doing this. You were saying horrible things, horrible anti-Semitic things just a few months ago, right? You stood, like I have colleagues who literally stood with neo-Nazis and today are posting, one of them sent a letter literally saying, SJP is extremely violent, anti-Semitic. We should investigate them. Girl, I saw you standing with neo-Nazis a few months ago. And it's the hypocrisy is insane. And that's why I'm really grateful for organizations like JVP, right? Jewish Voices of Peace. And if not now, I think these organizations are really talking about like, we're here, we're fighting for justice, and we're saying, never again for anyone, right?
Yeah.
This is not a Muslims versus Jewish thing, right? You cannot be Islamophobic and use that as a cover to say I wasn't anti-Semitic before, right? I'm supporting Jewish people by being extremely Islamophobic when you weren't supporting them before, and you're using it as an excuse, as a cover to be Islamophobic. And it's just, that's why I'm really grateful for these coalitions that are coming together to talk about, we're saying no to hate across the board, and we're saying no to injustice across the board. We don't support any of it in any form, right? So I'm very hopeful that those coalitions are going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to do great work and break down those barriers and do education, like true education, because a lot of American people have been, the knowledge has been really suppressed, right? The media has been suppressing it like crazy. And they're only now starting to show, fragments of the truth because they've been pressured so much by everyone. So
right. We're in the age now where people are getting informed, or it's cool to be informed on politics. Before it was the taboo that, politics, I don't get involved, I don't think about it. But now, I kid you not, when I go on Twitter or when I go on Instagram, not even 9 out of 10, probably more than 9 out of 10, probably 95 out of 100 posts that I see all have to do with Palestine and Israel. And it's just, wow, this is what everybody's talking about. Because before it's like, okay, some world affair is going on. This doesn't really concern me.
Problems here, etc.
But all these things do concern you. This money that we're giving to Israel, even if you don't look at it from a perspective of
human rights,
right? Which is, you should.
Right,
but
we should.
If you're like, how does this affect me over here? If I'm a non-Muslim American living in Ohio in your district, well, on a federal level, you're paying these taxes that are being given directly to Israel to be used for weapons.
Right. When we have people in our country who kept student loan debt, drowning in debt, drowning in medical debt, right? They have free healthcare over there on our tax dollars. Infrastructure, people are houseless. And it's just, I think when you put it in that context, like it really hits home for people. Like this is your tax money.
It's so sad.
To kill kids when it could be used to educate yours.
It's so sad that that's the context we have to use. Not even that, hey, there's people dying. There's so many videos out there that it just, you watch them and you just feel something in your heart that this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening. But the fact that if all of that isn't going to convince you, hey, the taxes that you pay, this is funding all of this. And then maybe you'll listen. But even then, for some people,
it's really crazy.
Still,
I don't know. Humanity is disappointing me these days. And we weren't really built to like watch a genocide happening in real time, live TV. It's just so, it's very traumatizing. I think we're all experiencing collective trauma, and then we're shocked that everyone else is not feeling this way. You walk around and you feel like you're crazy. Yeah. I think the first couple of weeks, especially, I was walking around like, how are you guys living life?
Yeah. Right?
There's like kids being killed like at this moment. There's parents, there's mothers, there's fathers, there's human beings literally being blown to pieces. And how are you like laughing and having fun right now? It was very, I think it was a disorienting, dissociating feeling. And honestly, we're going in a bad route.
It was definitely notable in my workplace or even shopping, going to restaurants, because even if you pull out your phone even for a second, you're just going to see something immediately that you just immediately drift off into the worst thoughts possible. And then you look around and there's just people laughing, people having a good time, people telling jokes, and you want to participate in the laughter and the jokes, but then you're just in a different battle internally. And we know, they might not know, but we know that we have of course, there's so many problems in this country that we have, but we are so privileged to be here, and we wouldn't even last 10 seconds in Gaza.
No, we really wouldn't. So their strength is it's very inspirational, because I know we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
We're very lucky.
Very lucky. We're living this life of comfort. Obviously, there are still issues in this country, and that's one of the main reasons why you ran for office, why you're here right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they sometimes don't make that connection that, hey, these world problems or even problems that are happening on a local level, that, oh, the politicians or the people I elect, it's all disconnected. When in reality, I think over the past few years, maybe since the start of the pandemic, people started doing their research and realizing that, hey,
more woke,
these people that we're putting in office, they're the ones who are, when COVID started, who did they bail out first? These corporations, these billionaires. We saw the largest movement of wealth from the bottom 50% to the top 1%. It was just outrageous to see who our government really cares for.
Yeah, and I think even the protests during 2020 was like very eye-opening. It was just, yo, do they actually care about this? Because they're just gassing us in the street, like, you know, just tear gassing us in the street and not caring about us, literally asking for basic human rights, and dignity, right? And it's just, I think people are in, there's a turning point that's happening. We're in a really important, I think, time in history, and young people are moving it forward. Very proud of Gen Z. Very proud of the work, you know, they're doing, and just educating people and making it so that we connect these issues to our daily lives. TikTok's amazing.
Yeah,
it's changing the world. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll just, based on, of course, the algorithm that you have, you'll see the content that you want to see. But it's also giving the ability for not just for me to view content, but for me to create content. Yeah. Because a lot of people, they're seeing what's happening either on a local or international level, and then creating the content, being outspoken. I remember that, you know, for the longest time, from 2020 to now, TikTok, Instagram, maybe even Facebook was kind of already there, but it was more so, oh, my mom and dad use this, and yeah. But I want to say that they weren't as political. They were more so, Instagram was always, oh, here, I went on this cool trip. And
aesthetics, you know,
aesthetics, vibes. Now you'll just see people posting a square with text written on it. Yeah. And then have millions of likes. Yeah. So it's amazing. It's interesting to see this transformation that, oh, we've gone from focusing on aesthetics and vibes and being all hip and cool to, this is the issue that's happening. Everybody get your attention here. Yeah. And I don't think these big tech companies like that at all.
No, not at all. The censorship is crazy.
That's why they're censoring all this stuff.
Censorship is wild. It's very frustrating.
Have you faced any decline in your
The shadow ban is real. Yes. Shadow ban is real. My story has definitely been going down. Especially like when I know when I post specific content, it drops halfway. It's very frustrating. And then I take like a little algo break. Post a nice picture of a cute baby or something, and then it comes back.
Yeah, you have to try to outsmart the algorithm, but
it's hard. But they really need to like come to, I don't know, they need to have consequences. It's insane. It's insane.
It's always interesting because even these social media companies, they also talk about, oh, we're about free speech and we're anti-censorship, and sure, we're only gonna censor hate speech or censor discrimination and all that stuff, right? Yeah. But then when you say free Palestine, well, who's deciding whether that's hate speech or not? And it's if you're in the 1% at the top or you're in office, to you may declare that hate speech, but for the 99% of people who have a reasonable, rational brain can clearly see that saying free Palestine is not hate speech at all.
It's hate speech when you say something I don't like. Basically.
Yeah. That's essentially it. And it delegitimizes actual hate speech. It makes it, because now, especially with people, with organizations such as JVP, who is it's in the name, Jewish Voice for Peace, people who are of Jewish faith or Jewish heritage, if they're the ones speaking out against war crimes that Israel is committing, how is that anti-Semitic? How are these guys on Anti-Defamation League? Because they are of Jewish heritage and of Jewish faith. And if you're claiming anti-Semitism, how does that logic even tie out? Why are you censoring these guys if they are the ones? It almost makes you think that there's an ulterior motive behind all of this.
I think everyone's waking up to it, and it's not just with the issue with Palestine. There's so many different things where you people have noticed they've been being censored. Even during Black Lives Matter, a lot of things are being censored, and I think a lot of people are opening their eyes and seeing that it's really like, if you don't say what we like if you try to shake things up too much, we're gonna shut you down. And I think we are realizing freedom is not really free.
This is definitely going to be a very interesting election.
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be
crazy.
Just thinking about it makes me
stressed out.
And I mean, I can't even probably speak on your level of stress that you are actually in office, you are actually up for re-election. But it also does make me wonder that there are a lot of new faces popping up into the federal level, state level, even the local level. What kind of advice would you give to someone who is watching that might get inspired, that say, oh, hey, if this person, not that you wouldn't be able to do it, but it's like, hey, if Munira can do it, then so can I. What kind of advice would you give to them for them to pursue either that path in as a state representative or any type of local office?
Oh, for sure. First of all, if you see an office and you think, hey, I could really make impact there, and you do the math, right? Obviously, I would never tell people. I tell people always prepare for whatever battle you're going to go into, right? Do the math, see if it's feasible. But if you want to represent your community in a way that's more impactful, and whether that be city council, school board, township trustee, state house, even, just go for it. Like, we really need more people who are passionate and care about the community. Don't do it for the power. Don't do it for the glory. It's not fun. It's not a fun position unless you're crazy. There's some exciting parts to it, of course, but we really need people who are going to serve the community, like truly going to serve the community. I think for 2024, obviously that time is over, because I think every petition has already been filed.
Right.
But for 2025, start thinking about it. Start getting involved right now in 2024. Start organizing. Start connecting with your community. Start seeing like the things they're frustrated about. The issues that haven't been addressed in the community. And really, if you find right now in 2024, really, I would say community's goal should be to find candidates that they really can relate to, that can do the things that your community needs as a whole, right? We need to think more collectively and stop thinking like, oh, I want tax cuts and I want this. We start thinking about what's beneficial to the community, right? What do we need? We need better schools. We need better streets. We need someone who fights for justice, right? Overseas and at home. Start collaborating as a community and looking at these candidates and saying, okay, this person would be great for us. And start organizing with your community. Start organizing with your neighbors. Start organizing with your friends. Tell them, hey, I know you're like very disillusioned right now. Everyone's disillusioned, right? No one really wants to vote for anybody. Yeah. It's just very depressing times. And I understand, like, it's the whole trust in the political system has been declining like for a very, very long time. It's a mess. I don't blame anybody. But we're only going to change it if we get involved.
Right. We
can't just keep looking away and be like, it's crazy. It's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
It's gonna get worse. So if you find someone, and I urge you guys to look hard, right? Find someone who can fit your community. They don't have to be perfect. Like, there's not gonna be the perfect candidate, right? It's very rare. Find someone that you can talk to and can work with, and then engage with them and connect with them and stay connected to them, because and don't leave them once they get elected either. Once you get them elected, like, continue to stay on them and make sure they know about the issues that are going on in your community, because politicians, elected officials, I don't like the word politician. Elected officials, they get a lot of things thrown at them. Even if they care about your community, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people in line talking about an issue. They get overwhelmed. And if they happen to forget they're a human being about an issue you told them about in the beginning while they're running, follow up. And we have a hard time with that. We're like, oh, they forgot about us. What are we going to do now? Go back to them and talk to them, right? That goes back to that lobbying thing. Get educated on political organizing, lobbying, how to have good communication with your elected officials, right? For God's sake, don't throw them away because of one bad decision. They're going to make decisions that are not the best, right? But if we throw them away, then we have nobody.
Yeah.
Be strategic about it. Connect with them for now, and then find somebody else to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right. We need to be more strategic is basically my advice for the community 2024. We need to be more strategic. We need to be more cohesive.
Right.
Because we're not going to build power in different groups, right? We're going to build power all together. And this is not just Muslim communities, like, the Black community. You find those communities that have the same needs as you. We all have pretty much the same needs. Like, we're all looking for very similar things. We want to have better quality of life. We want to have better schools, better streets, right? Better healthcare. we need to come together more and build coalitions and then actually make these things happen instead of just complaining and going to sleep.
Yeah, it's complaining and going to sleep is easy.
It's easy,
Actually,
man.
making a change is the hard part.
It's
And
the
as
hard
you
part, but it's
said,
satisfying,
it's
right?
not fun unless you're crazy.
Yeah.
And most people are not crazy, but
I don't know.
some are.
Yeah.
But I guess I did want to preface the point that if someone were to get into local or state, I don't know about federal, maybe federal, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. If someone gets into that position, how do they ensure that, I guess, they don't face the same repercussions that, you know, other elected, like, for example, if I'm a big fan of XYZ candidate and that candidate gets elected and then they don't deliver on their promises, how do I make sure that I don't lose hope? Because I think it's easier to have someone who agrees with you 90% and push them on that remaining 10% than have someone who agrees with you 50% and push them the other 50%.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is,
how do you not lose hope, really? On the candidate?
Yeah, I mean,
understanding the political landscape. Like, for example, in Ohio, we don't get anything done. I had promises,
yeah,
but some bills literally don't even get hearings because our chairmen are like, nah, I don't hear it. So we have to understand the political landscape and understand there's a bigger picture and get involved in things like we're trying to change the bigger picture in Ohio. We're doing redistricting, citizen-led initiative for redistricting, and not like politicians drawing maps. Like, it was like citizens, people, not politicians, something like that. I don't know. But we're trying to redraw the map so we can have less gerrymandered maps and actually have like a fair election where people can choose like real candidates and not people who drew a map for themselves or drew a district for themselves. And we can actually have a GA that, a General Assembly that actually makes decisions.
Yeah, instead of
just try to screw people over 24/7.
Instead of, hey, I'm in office, I'm in this big shiny chair now.
Exactly. A lot of them are just there for the big shiny chair. Like, some I don't even see them. Yeah.
They got elected and then
they're
never
they're
see
just
them
taking
again.
the title and go home. They just take the little fancy pin, they go home.
I guess who, maybe whether it's a Democrat or Republican, how much more often do you face disappointment with the people in your party versus outside the party? Like, for example, if, you know, the Republicans, we already know that what they're up to, right? But the Democrats, they give you that little bit of faith and a little bit of hope, and then when they don't deliver, they leave you a little disheartened or disappointed. So is there an association that you make that, oh, because the Republicans, they're disappointing, but I know they're disappointing, and then the Democrats, there's a little bit of promise there, but they never deliver? Would you say there's one that disappoints you more than the other?
More than the other? I think they both do, honestly. Especially in Ohio, because it's super majority. It's all Republicans making decisions. So I'm like, come on, guys, choose your humanity. It's like every time you're choosing, I don't know what they're choosing. I'm trying to understand them too, like what's going on here. So I think they disappoint me the most. I'm not gonna lie to you, actually, because I came in not very partisan. I'm like, all right, they're both like crappy. Right? I'm like middle of the line. You know, I'm here for the people. But I'm realizing like it's a very big problem, especially in the Ohio Republican Party. Like, it's just party corruption right now. It's really bad. So even though I'm like, oh, I should expect it, it's just always disappointing. And then establishment Democrats.
Yeah.
Can't stand them.
It's easier to probably.
They just stay in their little safe bubble.
Of course.
Don't try to push the.
They don't try to be risky. They just, because we get donor money too. We don't want to upset our donors.
Exactly. It's very disappointing.
Goes back to that lobbying you were talking about. Who am I representing? Am I representing
they don't
special
like to shake things up at all.
Yep.
I hate those. So they're both disappointing. Yeah. Extremely.
I feel over my lifetime I've learned that whether they're red or blue, it's just disappointment unless it all goes back to who's funding your campaign, who's lobbying you, and who are you representing.
In federal politics, in local politics, it's a little different. State house, it's not like that a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's maybe like 40% of the time like that.
But with the state house, there still is a little bit of that corporate interest, though.
There is, for sure.
Republican and establishment Democrats.
They wouldn't be spending that much money if there wasn't, right?
But I guess what refrains them, if it's not as corrupt as federal, is it because maybe they have the eyes on the next high shiny chair, which is the federal? Or
there's a lot of them who have aspirations. They don't want to ruin it. There are people who are in like very shaky districts. If they're in a safe district, they're gonna go crazy. They're gonna go wild because they know they're good to go. But if they're in like a risky district, they're gonna like be a little bit more in line. And I think Ohio is just an overall shaky place because we have very loose finance laws. Like our threshold is so high. Feel free to donate. It's like 15K.
Slight plug.
Slight plug. Like literally, the threshold is 15K almost.
Wow.
And people, like most states have like 1,000, 2,000, 2,000. So the possibility for corruption is really high. It's continues like here as the most corrupt state house in America. That's Ohio. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out how we beat like Texas and Tennessee, but we did it somehow. But and we're year round for the most part. But yeah, there's penchant for corruption, and I don't know what changes it, but I think the safe seat versus not safe seat also matters a lot, and whether they want to move up or not. I don't know. There's a lot of factors involved.
Well, we'll just have to make sure that if you ever decide to run for federal, that we say, hey, we saw what you did with your Ohio State legislation position, and we are holding you. We're going to hold you accountable at the federal level too.
I hope so. I hope people always hold me accountable. Always hold. That's another thing. Hold your elected officials accountable. They think you're not paying attention. That's a huge one. They really think people are not paying attention. They bank on that. That's one of the reasons why they kind of feel like they can do whatever they want. They think people are not, like, these legislations are so long. There's pages, and they add like one line that's like the horrible line. It's hard to find, right? The news doesn't cover as much because it's not exciting, right? You need views.
Right.
So they think people are truly not paying attention. So that's why I love like these organizations and young people who are making like these legislation easy to understand, like they're breaking it down, right? But I hope people can truly educate themselves on what's happening in their city. Guys, politics is local. It's going to affect you today, tomorrow, next year. Pay attention, because when you're not paying attention, they're doing crazy things.
Yeah.
They're doing crazy things behind the scenes because they think no one cares. So like my voters don't know what's going on. They're not going to read this bill. So they just go for it and vote for it.
I mean, now more than ever, I think people are politically activated, and this is the chance to funnel that same energy for that someone might have towards Gaza, towards healthcare, towards homelessness, education, all these other issues that are happening at a local or state level. And these are issues that can be fixed. They're policy choices at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think it's important that you laid out that, hey, if there's a position that you really think that you're able to see, that's open, that you want to run for, go for it. And then make sure that whether it's you that are taking that position or someone else, hold them accountable. And I think a lot of people forget that, oh, what can we do about these politicians? Well, there's a reason that there's an election every 2 years or every 4 years, that, hey, if this politician does not do what I want them to do, then I have the ability to hold them accountable, refrain their vote, make that known to them, whether it's by phone, email, or just showing up at the polls and giving them a surprise the day of, that, how did I lose? Oh, well, it's because all the things that you promised or delivered on, they didn't come up to the expectation. So I think that's a valuable lesson that a lot of people in the country can take. Hold your local, state, federal representatives accountable.
Yep. Email them, call them.
We'll have Ohio residents email you, phone you, because if they're watching right now, they know that, she said, hold me accountable.
Hold me accountable, guys.
All right.
Email me, call me.
Well, I'm not going to hold you accountable for much longer. What I am going to do is thank you for coming on. It was a really good conversation, Munira.
Pleasure's all mine.
And
thank you.
Hope you have a great rest of your time in Chicago.
Appreciate it.